Today we're going to do a little bit of off-grid computing as we prepare my off-grid system here for the Raspberry Pi 5, which requires a bigger power supply. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I have the Raspberry Pis and the other off-grid computing systems set up. And we're going to go ahead and install this Pi into my device here. So let's go ahead and stay tuned. Thanks for checking out this Switch to Linux video. This is a little bit of a different video, as oftentimes we do more with the software. Today we're going to be digging into some of the electronics and the hardware of my setup here. And what we're going to do is I have to start by swapping a power supply. And the reason is the Raspberry Pi 5 requires a higher grade of power than does the 4. Now, some people online I've seen said, oh, you can use the same one. It doesn't make a difference. I've tried it. It's fine. And you don't want to do that. The reason is the Pi 5, it can, if depending what you're doing, you might be able to get be able to use it on a little bit lower power rating, but you don't want to do that. It's going to risk possible damage to your device. Give it the amount of power it needs, especially since I'm running the M2 hat with the SSD on here, and this did cause the power to jump up a little bit. So overall though, the system is still running on average about 1 to 1.5 amps on 5 volts. So that means that this guy is running, I think I did the calculation, I can still run it for like 800 hours or something on my battery system if I had to just use that in an emergency situation. I have 800 hours of computing after the apocalypse before my battery's dead, right? So of course, since we are entirely off-grid in this van and all my computer systems and everything I have is off-grid, we're going to talk a little bit about how I'm doing that with my setup here. And in a future video, maybe we'll go over all the different computers I have and how they're all hooked up. But the reality is we just need to have the right converters. And what I found is on Amazon, I found this guy here. We have the connector for the Raspberry Pi 5, which is just a USB-C. This guy here is a 5 volt, 5 amp max. Now I have a lot of these that are 5 volt, 3 amp, which is what the old Raspberry Pis were and most of your other devices. You could plug one of these guys in and actually use it as just an onboard phone charger right into the phone. Things like that. What I use these guys for, of course, is powering my device, and then I use these individual switches. So what we're going to do is we have to pull off the top up here. We have to pull out the old 5 volt 3 amp and swap it with the 5 volt 5 amp one right here. I'm going to show you a little bit of the spaghetti code that's going on here to make all of this happen. So what we're going to do is the first step here is I need to remove this panel, which is going to require me to unplug these lights. These guys up here are actually the lights that I use for streaming. So there they are. And I have them over these connectors here just to dim them out because they're super bright. But fortunately, these guys are put up here with a nice little connector. We can just slide that guy out. And then we're going to need to, I think, move just the side out. There's 3 screws holding this up. And then I have some of my electronics are up top, some of my electronics are on the bottom. Now I don't actually have to show you, I don't have to mess with anything on the bottom. I'll show you what it looks like just because I have everything out to map where everything is. And of course, all of these devices together are on, I think it's a 10 amp fuse, which is going to run this Raspberry Pi, the Raspberry Pi will be the 5. It runs the Raspberry Pi 2, which runs Kodi. And I also have the speaker system over here where I have 4 speakers embedded into the wall. And this guy here is just a DC speaker amplifier. And I have all my wiring with a switcher up here to determine which input my sound comes from. So let's go ahead and show you a little bit more up close what we're going to do here. All right, so looking at this crazy amount of spaghetti code down here, the reason there's so much down here is there's actually one power line coming in, which is used for the monitor and this computer charger down here. Of course, we have down here, we talked about before, this guy here allows us to convert 12 volts into the 19 volts used for a variety of different computers. We also have a adjustable out here, which is set at 8 volts, which allows me to run a camera. This is how I stream my camera without running out of battery power for my live shows. And we also have just the ability to plug anything else into this guy here. So this is all connected to this block down here, which is actually set up as just a small bus bar, just with some basic screws and the appropriate wires. And that's this switch here. Now, the rest of these wires are coming down, usually from over here, coming in, and over here, going out. Those connect to these 3 switches, which will run this guy, which is one of my quick charge ports. Allows me to charge phones or other devices off a USB. This guy here is the Kodi system, and this is the Raspberry Pi 4, soon to be Raspberry Pi 5, that allows me to do work. Now, everything else is going to be up here. So what I need to do is we're going to start with, these are the switches. There's one on both sides, so we're just going to slide these guys out. And then we're going to pop this guy off. There is a screw here, one here, and another one right back behind here. So we're going to take this guy off, and then everything else we need is down there. So let's go ahead and work on that. All right, so we're going to start by pulling these guys out here. We have one on each side. And now we need to find my screwdriver, wherever I put that. It's over here. And we're just going to take these guys off right here. All righty. So this might be the first time we get a chance to see what this looks like up here. So let me go ahead and point out the various things that are up here. All right, so this is my 5-volt 3 amp connector that is powering the Raspberry Pi 4. This is another one of these, which is powering the Raspberry Pi 2. And you'll notice it is a different block because this one has the micro USB, this one has the USB-C on it. We have a bus bar up here, which I have created myself, which runs over into the various switches. And then we have, this is a ground loop isolator. So if you know anything about audio in a DC system, we need to have a ground loop isolator which takes care of any background noise. If this guy wasn't here, you'd get a lot of feedback and static just from the fact that the whole thing is a closed loop DC wiring system. And so we need to fix that with a ground loop isolator, which I picked up at Best Buy for, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks. And so the only thing we're going to do basically is pull this guy out, and that is connected here and here. And you'll see that I connected it the old school way where I just kind of merged them all in one solid piece. We're going to get rid of that, and we're going to connect them instead with snap connectors. That way, any future adjustments or swapping out will be very easy. We're just going to go right off of the 2 wires that are right here, simply because if we mess with anything else, we might be able to do something else there, but it just starts becoming a lot more work, and we don't want to make more work for ourselves than we have to. So the first thing we're going to have to do is let's go ahead and unplug all the devices from the Pi 4. So there's that. Here is our HDMI, and there is our power supply. We'll get into how this guy is mounted here in a bit, but we're going to go ahead and pull this out. So what we're going to do is clip off this wire here. We're going to clip off the wire over here, and then we're going to attach a snap connector to both sides of those wires. And then we are going to pull this off, and we're going to attach the new one via the snap connectors. All right, so we're going to clip them off on this side. Look at how weak that is. Must have bought them things from Amazon. That's literally slid right off. Okay, well, maybe we can just pull the other one off too without having to mess with it. It looks like I do need to pull this guy out a little bit. It's locked in here with a little nail. Oh, I didn't mean to pull it all the way out. Just meant to loosen it, but oh well. Guess we pulled it all the way out. All right. And this one is not going to slide out, so we're going to go ahead and cut it. All right. So now this will be loose on both sides. All right. And now what we need to do is we need to add a connector to each side of this. And then where's the other one? I got to figure out where the other one went. There it is. Okay, so these two here need a connector. So this looks like it's probably 12 gauge. Give those a nice tug, make sure they're good. All right, so now we're gonna grab our port here and we're gonna double check these wires. And these are 20 gauge wires here. So we're gonna run these at 20. I'm going to turn on autofocus for you guys. That might help you out. I'm not sure. There we are. That's better. So I'm just trying to find the 20 there. Give it a couple loops around. Slide that guy off. All right. So now we will attach our male adapters. All right, and one more male adapter to do. All righty. Now those are in, we're going to pull this first guy out up here. So we're just going to take out one screw and just loosen the other one. Oh boy, these guys have been here for a while. They're stuck. There it goes. And the width of these two are the same, so I can just keep using the same device there. Roll this the other way. And we're going to test if it works just by taking this guy and plugging it into a phone. Hit the power switch. Of course it doesn't work. Doesn't it plug the things in yet? I'm dumb. All right. Try and remember to edit that part out of the video. Hold on. All right. So we're going to grab our ground or our power wire there. And that guy's going to go in. Where'd that little connector go? So let's put this behind as much stuff as possible so that it's not in our way. Pull the ground loop isolator out. That's just up there with Velcro, so that's nice and easy to handle. Okay, make sure that's totally tight. Good. And now we'll grab this side. And set our ground loop isolator back up. All right, now that things are plugged in, we can go ahead and give this guy a test. And boom, phone is charging. So we are good. All right, so the next step we need to do is pull off the old Pi. And I have these guys up here on Velcro tabs. And the case is held together with Teflon screws. So the first thing, we're going to go ahead and feed this guy back down through here. And the power cables are locked in place just out of the way with a Velcro tab behind the Pi 2. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and pop these guys off. So they're just Teflon screws, so we just need to unscrew those guys. It looks like what we might need to do is pull the Pi out of the case. Oh, this one's actually screwed into the bottom of the case. I'm going to need to pull it out a little bit better there. And now we're going to attach this Pi to the case. And it looks like the screw holes are not as aligned. So we might just screw one of them in for now. Of course they'd be different size screw holes. Why wouldn't they be? Nothing can ever go right. So these guys don't fit. I'm going to have to work on a different setup here. I'm going to pause the camera for a second and figure that out. All right, so the solution I came up with is to use, I just had some smaller screws here, which I have all the washers to. And just to make sure there's no metal contacts, just no metal contacts on the back, I went ahead and just pushed in some electrical tape over those. Now, of course, we still don't have the ability to run both of them, so I'm going to decide which one is going to be the best for considering our layout. And we're going to pull one of those out. So I think I'm going to leave the bottom one in, but we're just going to go ahead and mount this guy in like this. We're going to put the SD card on the bottom, USB ports on the top. That way I can actually access what I need. And I'll go ahead and put a screw down here. I should have a washer right there. All right, so on the back of this guy, we're just going to put a washer there, and then we're going to tighten this screw down as tight as I can get it. And I'm pretty confident that's not going to go anywhere. So now we'll just go ahead and attach the Pi. It clips to the SD card side. Then this part goes up there. This guy clips on. One of the things I'm slightly concerned about is this case doesn't clip together quite as well as the other one did. If that ends up being a problem, there's an overlap here. I'll probably put a small piece of electrical tape here and here to keep it together. That should do a good job. And also the M2 chip does not fit on top of the case. Now they say if you get a spacer slightly smaller than the ones they ship with, you can get it down enough where it does fit. The problem is the fan on the active cooler has no airflow at all, and I don't like that. And so we're just gonna go ahead and run with this. So with that, let's just go ahead and plug this guy in. Here's our HDMI. Here's our Ethernet. Here's our keyboard and mouse. And note that the USB 3 ports are on, the way this is mounted on the right versus on the Pi 4, they were on the left. So I'm gonna keep the USB port for the keyboard just on the 2s instead of the 3s. And now we're gonna plug this guy in right here. All right, so our power's in, HDMI's plugged in. Go ahead and turn this guy on, see how it works. We got power. We got motion on the card. HDMI just picked up, and there we have it. Go ahead and get our login set. And we have a MX Linux running Cinnamon on a Raspberry Pi 5 hooked directly into our system now. So now the last step here is I just got to clean stuff up. We're going to put the Pi 4 back in its case properly. We'll do that off camera since that's not really relevant to this project. But as far as wrapping the rest of this up, first thing we're going to actually do is attach the bottom back down here. This is always an extra little couple steps here. And I have this set so it doesn't need screwed in. It fits in with gravity, but I actually have a couple clips down here to lock it in place. And there we have it. This guy here is just an extra cable. So there we have it, folks. We have a little bit about how I have my DC system set up here. And we just had to swap over that power supply. And where'd that old one go? I don't know, there it is. Now if I wanted to, I could just go ahead and take this guy and plug it in somewhere next to the van as a good external USB charger, although I have plenty of USB chargers around. So I don't know if I really need to do that. I could put it up here so that I can plug in my, regular studio light more regularly, but I don't know. We'll just put that in our box of other toys and use it later on. So there is a little bit about that, and stay tuned in the future. We're going to have more videos about how I have all the rest of the stuff set up, what computers I have in here. And with that, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.